Welcome to another episode. I'm your host, Joe Chap, and today we'll be talking about the Detroit Pistons. They got great news on the injury front from Cade Cunningham, and it came via a tweet by Woj. Woj put out here, ESPN sources, Pistons guard Cade Cunningham fully recovered from season-ending shin surgery in December. Will practice and scrimmage for a USA select team against the senior Team USA roster bound for the FIBA World Cup. Cunningham was offered a spot on the World Cup roster, but deferred to focus on preparing for the NBA season. USA basketball camp is set to start in August in Vegas. So, what you take away from that is that Cade Cunningham is going to focus on the Detroit Pistons, focus on playing basketball for the Detroit Pistons, and here soon. Now, I know a lot of people have judged Weaver for the mistakes he has made. And when you watch Sir Thompson and Marcus Sasser in Summer League, you can't help to be very enthused about the future of the Pistons. I know a lot of people come out of here saying the Pistons have no future. They're in purgatory. You kind of got to let it play out because these three players are these three players I'm going to name are huge to the Detroit Pistons rebuild. And if you hit on one or two, and then Sir Thompson or Marcus Sasser becomes something good, you could have a real legitimate team. So last year, Jaden Ivey didn't have Cade Cunningham. Jalen Duren didn't have Cade Cunningham. I think for the future benefit of the Detroit Pistons, that was the best thing to happen for those two. Because oftentimes when you watch sports, you see that a young player becomes reliant on other players to become successful. And when that usually happens, you have an issue with a player becoming too reliant, not refining his skills enough, not being the best player that he could potentially be. You know, you see it with a lot of players that play with LeBron. You see it with a lot of players that played with like these great players. They never become to their full potential because in the first year, they kind of were, they took the cheap way out. They didn't have to do it by themselves. And with Jaden Ivey and Jalen Duren, they definitely did have to do it by themselves. So when you look at the Detroit Pistons and you look at Cade Cunningham, him coming back and having a successful recovery from his shin surgery should be very, very good for the Detroit Pistons. And if you're a Pistons fan and you're excited about the future, the one thing you can say about the future is Cade Cunningham does look legit. And you can say that Jalen Duren has superstar potential at the highest peak if he gets there. Now, if all three hit and then maybe Sir Thompson becomes a good player, you could be potentially looking at a championship roster. Now, what my feeling on the Detroit Pistons is, it's simple. I think the Pistons will be a better basketball team next year. I think they will be going towards the play-in, and they will potentially be in the play-in tournament. Because a lot of people are underestimating how injury-filled that roster was and what the Pistons could potentially be. I look at the Pistons like this. They're a young team. They're missing one of their key pieces, and they had two rookies that were playing a majority of the minutes. Now, I know Isaiah Stewart is not a rookie, but he's not a guy who's going to take the game over, let's be honest. And Bohan, as great as he is, he's not going to take a game over either. And still, basketball is still a team sport. I know people look at Giannis and they look at LeBron, but if this NBA Finals showed you anything about the game of basketball, it's still ultimately a team basketball game, and the best teams that win championships are good on defense. So here's the thing. We know Monty Williams is going to be the Pistons head coach. We know that Dwayne Casey couldn't get this team to play a lick of defense. If you're looking at a way for the Detroit Pistons to be a lot better of a basketball team, it starts with the defensive game. And that's what Monty Williams is going to have to implement. And with the pick of Sir Thompson, which we know he's a good defensive player, if he can get his offensive game going, this team could potentially just be a playoff team, in my opinion. Because I think Cade Cunningham missing the year last year was huge. But I think in retrospect, it still helps Jaden Ivey and Jalen Duren with their development because they weren't reliant on Cade to get in the ball, weren't reliant on Cade to make this play, not relying on Cade to make this play. And sometimes when that happens, it's for the betterment of the team. So with the Detroit Pistons, they had good news today. Now, it's good that Cade's going to focus on basketball and try to become the best player he can be for the Detroit Pistons. And I think this Detroit Pistons team could potentially be a team that we look at in April as a play-in tournament team. I want to know what you think. Let me know below in the comments, and I will talk to you because I love the banter with people. But if you think the Detroit Pistons are a playoff team, let me know below.